Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April 28th edition of the Bub Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bub. Now, this week's program was pre-recorded earlier as I am traveling this weekend. Nonetheless, we remain committed to bringing you a quality program every week without interruption. Now, a disturbing set of deaths have been taking place at Trinidad and Tobago's main hospital in its capital city, Port of Spain, which may have resonance for expectant parents throughout the English-speaking Caribbean. Over the course of 4 days earlier this month, 7 infants have died from a bacterial infection at the island's Port of Spain General Hospital. The outbreak occurred at the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit of the facility, according to a release from the country's Northwest Regional Health Authority, responsible for the hospital's management. The children died from late-onset neonatal sepsis, a condition known for its rapid onset and potentially devastating and lethal impacts. All the victims were children who were prematurely born at least 32 weeks old and required intensive care support. Laboratory investigations revealed that there were at least 3 types of bacteria of concern in the ward. Now, while the ward was sprayed with chemicals to kill the bacteria, and the outbreak might have been contained as of April 7th, concerns still remain about the scope of infection control at the hospital. And later on the Bub Report, we find out why some CARICOM member states, especially in the Leeward Islands, are expressing reservation about committing to the principle of full free movement, which CARICOM leaders agreed to in March by setting a deadline to amend the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. The treaty change will guarantee all CARICOM nationals whose member states are part of the Caribbean single market and economy the right to travel and work and live freely in each other's jurisdictions. The new arrangement will, among other things, move beyond the free movement of skills to freedom of movement of people generally. Joining us this week are Peter Wickham, Director of the Caribbean Development Research Services consulting firm, Dr. Justin Pear, Labor Market and Migration Consultant, Senior Counsel Anand Ramlogan, who is also the former Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and former Deputy Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Sam Condor. This is the Bub Report. Please do us a favor by sharing today's live stream. We will be right back for the first segment. Viewers and listeners, welcome again to this week's edition of the Bub Report. Now, for the first segment of the program, we sit with Senator Anand Ramlogan, former Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and Senior Counsel. He has been retained by the families of 7 deceased newborn babies who passed away from neonatal sepsis over 4 days at the NICU at the Port of Spain General Hospital. Now, Mr. Ramlogan described his intended goal in a 9-page letter recently sent to the CEO of the Northwest Regional Health Authority to, quote, file an unprecedented class action claim for medical negligence based on the mass death of 7 innocent babies, unquote. He stated that the families were invited over the weekend to attend a meeting with high-ranking Northwest Regional Health Authority officials on April 13, 2024, but they expressed reservations regarding the meeting's objectives, the attendees, and whether the family's legal representation was permitted. Mr. Ramlogan, that is, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report, sir.
Hi, good day, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Ramlogan, we were drawn to this story because in many respects, this is an unprecedented class action lawsuit. And not in my experience, and not in my experience covering the Caribbean, have I ever seen a lawsuit brought by families of deceased babies over that type of neonatal death to the fore like this. And of course, what has happened in Trinidad is indeed unprecedented. Now, how is this action, this legal action that you are proposing to take, different from any other type of litigation done in the past?
Well, I think the first thing is that medical negligence is a rare occurrence in terms of litigation in the Caribbean as a whole. Very rare do you get people suing doctors and hospitals in the Caribbean. And the reason for that, I think, is twofold. One is it costs. Litigation is expensive business if you're going to sue doctors and hospitals. And, not many lawyers specialize in that field in the Caribbean. But the second reason, I think, it has to do with the fact that you need to have medical expert evidence. In other words, doctors who can testify against doctors. And given the small size of the medical profession, which is very close-knit in the Caribbean islands, I mean, everyone know everyone, just like in the case of lawyers, and they're not going to testify against their colleagues. So that I'm the head of Freedom Law Chambers. I'm no longer senator, but I am the former Attorney General, just to correct that. And the point is, we have specialized in medical negligence work and constitutional and human rights work for quite some time. And what we do is we use doctors from outside the region. So we use doctors from the United Kingdom and the United States of America, where we developed a network of lawyers, some of whom are from the Caribbean originally, and many of whom are just from, first world countries. And they assist us by, reviewing and analyzing the patient's medical notes, and they testify virtually, through the computer, as it were. So that we have been able to win several high-profile medical negligence cases for ordinary poor people in Trinidad. I'm also doing some work in Dominica, Barbados, Jamaica, and other islands where I'm being consulted. So it's clear to me that this is an area, it's a blind spot in our democracy. It's a blind spot in our justice system as well. And it's time to step up to the plate, because there are no more or less victims of medical negligence in the Caribbean than there are in other parts of the world, and we just allow this area to grow and develop to the benefit of people and to the benefit of the public healthcare system as well, which will benefit from these cases.
And it's just also a matter of accountability as well. I just feel as if within that specific space, accountability is not there. So, for example, in the United States, a family can sue an entire hospital for medical malpractice, and they're able to win in the millions of dollars, but they're also able to hold these institutions criminally negligible as well. There is that element as well. Now, can you articulate the gravity, Mr. Ramlogan, of this massive death toll of newborn infants at the Port of Spain General Hospital? And it's not only at the Port of Spain General Hospital as we understand it. Other hospitals are also involved. Now, I imagine the families, especially the parents, are reeling from this.
Oh, absolutely. They're traumatized. They're in grief. They're in pain. It's intense distress and suffering for the mothers. It's a traumatic experience. And the number has now risen to over 20. And they're not just related. The cluster of deaths that occurred at the NICU in Port of Spain with respect to the bacterial infection, that has now expanded, not just to the deaths in the NICU, but that story acted as a catalyst for so many mothers to come forward, that we are faced with a virtual avalanche of mothers, grieving mothers, and fathers coming to us with their own horror stories. And we are carefully vetting it, and we are issuing pre-action protocol letters in respect of those cases where we feel that there is a viable case for medical negligence. You're absolutely correct. There is no transparency in the public healthcare system in Trinidad and in the wider Caribbean. And I think, it's time we develop something like a charter, a legally enforceable charter of a patient's Bill of Rights. Mm-hmm. So the patient must know what their rights are. At present, there is no transparency and accountability in public healthcare in the Caribbean. And the time has come to have that conversation, to change it. If you're a doctor or lawyer, you're considered a god in the Caribbean, and you can't do nothing wrong. But the poor people who suffer at the hands as victims of medical and professional negligence in any profession. These are the poor people we need to protect from this kind of situation. And I have found that in particular in the field of obstetrics and gynecology and babies in particular, I have found that that is a very vulnerable area when it comes to healthcare in Trinidad and Tobago at least, and I suspect in the wider Caribbean as well.
Absolutely. Now, the number you mentioned here is staggering. Now, the reporting suggests that you're representing only 7 families, but I imagine, as you said, there has been that avalanche of families coming forward following that.
But each day the number has grown because mothers have been contacting the law firm. They've been calling us and coming to see us. And with each day we see on average about 10 persons. And out of those 10, at least, I would say quarter of them or half of them, have viable medical negligence cases. So what we've done is we've asked the government in Trinidad and the hospital to pay for an independent medical expert who's based in the UK or US to review the patient's medical notes and records, to prepare a report to give the patients so that they will be able to know what are the errors in the healthcare patient management and care, so that we can use that report, because it's a mandatory requirement in order to proceed with a medical negligence case. You must have an independent medical expert who will testify in a court of law that I have examined this patient's medical records and notes, I have looked at the patient's statement, and I think the hospital erred in the following respects: 1, 2, 3, 4. These people have no money to pay for such a medical specialist. We can't get anyone locally in Trinidad because they are all somehow either working for the hospitals or connected with the public healthcare system, which is run by the government. So we have had to go outside. Unfortunately, we've had some very caring doctors who have responded from the United States and the UK, who have discounted their fees considerably and are prepared to do it for $5,000 US per patient. And we've asked the government and RHA to pay that for each patient so we can get the expert medical report that is a prerequisite for us to take these cases to court, or else it will be swept under the carpet and the poor would be taken they would have ridden roughshod over the poor and swept this matter under the carpet.
Now, the Minister of Health, that's Mr. Terence Dial Singh, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago indicated that they're also going to be employing outside experts, namely by way of the Pan American Health Organization. What communication have they had with you in respect of, and the families, in respect of independent third-party investigations? And as I suspect, probably you may want to have some stake in that external investigation as well.
But that's part of our complaint. They have completely excluded all of these grieving mothers and fathers and relegated them to the periphery as though they're mere spectators. They've been asking to say, well, look, we want to have an independent representative of our choice, an internationally qualified disease control expert, someone with obstetrics and gynecology expert with many years experience. We want to have someone there of our own choice, to look after the welfare and interests of these people and to ensure that the investigation is fair and transparent. And the government has refused. They have not given a reason as to why they are refusing to allow the people who matter the most to have a say by way of a representative in the investigation. They've given no explanation, but they continue to ignore the parents' cries and pleas, and it is eroding public confidence in the investigation. And it is going to be, they themselves are not realizing that the thing is going to be downgraded to the status of a political puppy show and an investigation that is designed to do political damage control, when it's far too late for that. The horse has already bolted.
And in those things, sometimes it becomes politicized, and then they say, well, look at what Paho said this, that, and the third, we implemented
Paho has never done a single report that is critical of governments in terms of its healthcare, none. And the government and their reports Paho has done sitting there gathering dust. They are very diplomatic in how they speak. They know that the arrangements with the governments is such that they have to batten their crease, as it were. So
sort
there,
of the bilateral diplomatic arrangements that they have.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
There's a sense of international committee about these things. And the idea is that that's why we want to have someone independent from as a representative of the people that matter the most. It is their babies that died, after all. So the grieving mothers, and they want to have someone, nobody's telling them yes or no. They haven't even said, well, look, they've asked PAHO if they will allow them to co-opt someone from the local medical profession or someone from the international profession, and PAHO said no. They haven't even said that. So there's no reason being given. Look, the only conclusion I've come to is because these people are poor and they come from the lower rungs of the socioeconomic ladder, some of them, or the vast majority of them, they are cleaners, they are security guards, they are waitresses. And because
people of the working class,
they
people of
work
the
in,
working class.
and
Yes.
yes, and if this was a rich and powerful family, they would have easily been able to have their representative. It is unacceptable and mind-boggling to think you can investigate my child's death, but you get to choose the people who kill my child want to investigate itself and exclude me and tell me I can't have an investigator there. It is simple. It is simply absurd. It's manifestly absurd.
Now, we understand that some of the families have voiced concerns, Mr. Reglogan, with respect to the medical records given to them as indicating the cause of death of their infants. Now, what gives them that pause? We understand that some of the families have expressed concern that the information given to them was not accurate. There are some families who have also expressed concern, for example, that not all information in respect of the procedures that were involved in the care of the deceased children and what that looked like. There is absolutely no accounting there. Can you talk to me about what the administration has been saying as to what the records that the families are given, or in respect of perhaps information that has been withheld from the families?
Well, you see, if a baby lives for less than a week, the medical records can't be that voluminous. The baby lived for less than a week.
Yes.
And the hospital took such a long time to give these records. And when we asked them, we persistently wrote and demanded it. They said, well, they have a procedure to follow. So we said, well, what's that procedure that could take so long? They said, well, first we have to photocopy it. Then we have to scan it. Then we have to email it. So I wrote back and I said, well, 10 years ago, they invented a machine that could scan and photocopy in one. And then they invented a machine called a laptop where you could email it with the click of a button. You understand? The click of a mouse. Because, trying to break it up and make it appear to be some complicated procedure that could justify not giving the records, the medical records, for days and weeks and so on, it's ridiculous. But the point is that the families became suspicious because what if you are rewriting those records? What if you are making entries and inserting it and manufacturing evidence to give yourselves a defense that you did not, that otherwise you wouldn't have? We've had medical negligence cases where the hospital, when we pressed them and about to go to court, said, we lost the whole file. Somebody rip out all the page. And that's a case where the baby has suffers from cerebral palsy. And the mother has to take care of that child from now till that child dies. And the cost is great. So that, look, the point is there should have been full and frank disclosure of those medical records almost within 2 to 3 days at max. And the fact that they've taken so long have fueled suspicions because of the fact that the system is plagued with inefficiency. They have confessed and admitted that this record-keeping system is not digitalized. So that makes it even easier to tamper with it because it's manual. In any serious hospital, you hire 2 or 3 data entry clerks to scan the records, and people have to have password restricted access to the medical records. So if anybody tampers with it, you'll know whose password logged on, when, and so on. These are basic things in 2024. And Trinidad and Tobago is not a poor country. We are an oil and gas-based economy. It's a rich country.
Well, the Minister of Health, about 8 days ago, that's Mr. Dial Singh, he said the government is moving ahead with plans to digitize their records, which I thought the announcement was interesting, given everything that the families have been requesting now. The timing, to me, was just very interesting in our examination of this matter. Now, so what will happen here? Would you, as the attorney, now be able to, I suppose, order discovery or order evidence?
Well, the good news is that we write letters every single day, and we have now received almost all of the medical notes and records. So
Okay.
the next step now is for the government and the hospital to come up and say that they will pay for an independent medical expert for these families to analyze those medical records and prepare
Mhm.
an expert report, which we can then use to take the matters to court. If
Mhm.
they fail to do that, well, then, the family's case cannot get off the ground, and the government would have oppressed these people and suffocated their right to access justice and file their claim for medical negligence,
Mhm.
knowing full well that they're taking advantage of them because of their poverty-stricken status.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the groundswell of public outrage, disquiet, and anger that is brewing in Trinidad and clearly in the wider Commonwealth Caribbean, that is going to bring public pressure to be on the government to do the right thing. I also think that I've been getting a lot of requests from outside of Trinidad. I think this medical negligence is an area that is a sore point in our societies, and it is a blind spot in our democracy. There's no transparency and accountability, and I've been getting calls now to expand the practice and to go elsewhere now to try and assist families in other jurisdictions. And I'm happy to do that. It's almost akin to a human rights project, as the case may be, but we
Mhm.
have to take the bull by the horns and say, look, let us have some introspective analysis of ourselves. Nobody sues doctors, and it can't be because we have perfect doctors. It's simply a matter of having the right kind of legal experience and expertise, and of course getting doctors who can testify from not the Caribbean but from outside, as we have been doing in these cases. So I'm prepared to step up to the plate. This is a mission that is a mission for the right cause, for justice in the interest of the public. And I think the time is right now, while these shocks and reverberations are being felt throughout the Caribbean, to try and to try and tap into that raw anger and hurt that the population is feeling, to examine the system and take a holistic review of the
Mhm.
question of the public healthcare system on the whole, to see where there are systematic deficiencies, where the negligence and maladministration and inefficiencies are, so we can try and improve it to the betterment of the people.
Now, process-wise, because in the OECS, the OECS Supreme Court, the case backlogs are a serious issue. I suspect it's probably the same thing in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So much so that for some matters, what they have done is that they have instituted out-of-court tribunals to conduct settlements and things like that in order to ameliorate the conditions associated with those backlogs. Do you have a timeline for what this particular lawsuit would look like in respect of, notwithstanding the backlogs that a lot of Caribbean courts experience?
Well, I mean, in Trinidad, the average time for a case to come to trial in the civil courts now is roughly between 2 to 3 years, which is not that bad compared to what obtained in the past. So the Chief Justice has implemented some sweeping measures to transform the administration of justice, and they have borne fruit. I think one of the positives that have come out of COVID that has helped improve the administration of justice is the virtual court system, because it is clearly more effective and it is more efficient, and it allows for a quicker pace of justice. So I suspect that these cases, our way forward, the roadmap for the way forward, is to get doctors on board as independent medical experts, to get them to prepare their medical expert report, file the medical negligence claims, and to aggressively pursue them on behalf of our clients in court. And I think the administration of justice will do itself a favor in the eyes of the public if it were to give these cases priority, in light of the fact that it concerns the loss, the death of a baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think given the gravity of this, I just can't imagine on a personal level the grief that these parents and families are feeling. I mean, this is just extremely traumatic and all of them. So of course, we send our solidarity there to them. Mr. Logan, before we get to the next segment, any final thoughts? I know that you said that you hope that this would set a precedent, and certainly the folks audience in Grenada, a lot of the parents, because we do have conversations here on the state of healthcare. and the state of negligence that occurs, medical negligence that occurs. And as you rightly said, there is that just deferential approach that we give to the system, right? And so any final thoughts in respect of the precedent-setting nature of this case?
When I was growing up, your parents dreamt of only two professions. Everybody wanted their son to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Yes.
and those two have become sacred cows because of that culture, that cultural approach, which is rooted in perhaps the colonial era. But the fact of the matter is, those are still two of the top professions, and we must not allow them to become sacred cows that are untouchable. The fact of the matter is that they're professions that are meant to serve the interests of the poor and the public at large. So I think that the time is ripe now for us to say, look, there are extraordinary cases and exceptional cases where medical negligence would have occurred. It is high time that they come to the fore and come to the surface. And poverty must not be a bar to access justice. And the system as a whole must come under the public microscope so that it can be examined and re-examined to determine where there are kinks and inefficiencies that can result in a better level of healthcare for all concerned. We're in the era of CARICOM integration, and it's moving swiftly ahead, perhaps not as fast as some people would like, but the point is, to the extent that the legal profession shares one common system of legal education, I am happy to respond to the calls for assistance from my colleagues at the bars in other jurisdictions. And, we are happy to assist in any way we can to bring justice and alleviate the plight of those who have suffered as victims of medical negligence. As I said, we have a network established in the UK and the United States of America with doctors who are prepared to testify. And that brings a certain level of objectivity and independence to the process. It also benefits the government and the healthcare system because it will tell them what first world countries are doing and how far the gap is in terms of healthcare, in terms of what we should be aspiring to and what should be our goal. So that even the government and the public healthcare system, they need to understand that medical negligence cases, it also benefits the system by allowing them not just to adopt a defensive role where you defend at any cost, but one that allows you to take some detached moments to reflect and take a panoramic overview and review the system for the betterment of all concerned.
Mr. Anand Mamlogan, thank you, sir, for appearing on this week's edition of the Bub Report.
My pleasure, Dr. Kellan. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, Mr. Anand Ramlogan, the former Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, he appeared on our program this week to give us an update in respect of the class action lawsuit that families are taking against the state of Trinidad and Tobago over the death of their infant babies at maternity units at public hospitals across the country.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
Unrestricted movement of nationals throughout the region, surpassing the 6-month restriction. She said that people have the right to move now for 6 months without questions. What we are talking about now is removing that 6-month constraint. The thing about all of this, ladies and gentlemen, is that some of these things we are hearing from the media outlets like THT News today. We're just hearing CARICOM leaders, they go to these meetings. The thing, though, with such a major decision, with such a life-changing decision, it's a game changer. How can leaders of the CARICOM go to these meetings and not consult with their own people? How can you leave Barbados, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Kitts Nevis, hop on a plane first class, and you go to these meetings that will change the entire development of your country and stability of your country, and not say anything to your people? People are only finding this out now. What the leaders of the CARICOM are planning to do by the end of March, yes, they had meetings last year. Okay, you announced in a press statement that you had meetings and this is what you decide. But did you come back to your people with a town hall to get any kind of feedback? You're just going to make decisions that people from all over the Caribbean can come to your country, can come to these people's country and stay there, live there, work there, while their own people can't get work? Now, who benefits from the full integration of movement of people within CARICOM? And I'm going to say this, one size doesn't fit all. Trinidad and them, they can handle this, but can an island like Nevis, St. Kitts, Antigua, can they handle that? So it cannot be one size fits all. So when these leaders are grinning and signing, are you thinking about your people and what you're about to do? What you're about to sign off on? Let me go back in history, because in the late 60s and early 70s, when larger countries within the region, countries like Jamaica and Trinidad, they were doing well economically, and the records are there to show that they wanted absolutely nothing to do with a single Caribbean economy. They didn't want to hear about Caribbean integration. They didn't want to hear about free movement. A matter of fact, the story of why the West Indies Federation failed is well told. But sadly, in a place like St. Kitts and Nevis, we can't ask the late, great Sir Robert Llewellyn Bratcher. We can't ask him. Now, the region's economies are not at the same strength. The opportunities for locals are not as bountiful in some countries. The percentage of skilled workers, the masters, the doctorates, and even first degrees, they are disproportionate when you compare larger countries to smaller ones. And moreover, attitudes towards Caribbean brothers and sisters haven't changed in some places, sadly. So while in an island like Nevis, Nevisians may be a welcoming paradise, they won't receive that welcome in other places. And many of our small island developing states, and we love to talk about small island developing states, we will surely feel the burden of this move. Struggling healthcare systems run the risk of crashing completely and failing to provide services at an acceptable standard to its own people. I understand that this is THG News today, but I have to give commentary on this because it bothers me what CARICOM leaders are about to do to its people. What about our education system? Become overwhelmed with increased number of students, ballooning classroom sizes, and limited resources can and will place learners at serious disadvantage. We talk about all kinds of things on social media, but these are the things I encourage our people to talk about. Call out your governments, hold them accountable, put their feet to the fire. Even for our own social safety nets are geared to and designed for the sole purpose of helping the most vulnerable among us have the undesired potential to become a full-blown welfare state program. Let's face it, many of these foreign nationals from places where poverty is ever increasing and opportunities are diminished, they will undoubtedly place severe strain on small island resources.
Viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bub Report. Now, for the second segment of our program, we are joined by a panel of experts to make sense of the impacts and implications of full regional integration of CARICOM nationals. A communique posted on CARICOM's website at the conclusion of its March summit said that members, quote, agreed on urgent steps to expedite objectives, unquote, for a single market. The communique added, quote, these include intensified work towards free movement, speeding up reviews to facilitate harmonization of certain business laws and mutual recognition, unquote. Now, Barbados' Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Mottley, announced that nationals from the Caribbean community will have the ability to travel throughout the region by the end of March of this year. Now, while this may be welcomed by some member states, reservations still remain by others. So, for example, Antigua and Barbuda's ambassador to CARICOM has expressed concern that signing a regional pact on free movement among member states' nationals could heap pressure on the Twin Island nations' public services. Now, currently, CARICOM passport holders are limited to spending 6 months in fellow CARICOM countries with no restriction. Full freedom of movement will now allow unlimited stays in each member state once ratified and acceded to in individual jurisdictions. Now, here to make sense of this milestone in the life of CARICOM are the Director of the Caribbean Research and Development Services, Mr. Peter Wickham, and Mr. Sam Connor, who was the former Deputy Prime Minister of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. He also served as the former Foreign Minister of that Twin Island Federation as well. Gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bob. Happy to be here sharing with our CARICOM brothers and sisters views on moving forward on the CARICOM single market and economy.
Yes, now, absolutely. Peter, it's always good to see you again, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. It's also good to be in the company of Mr. Sam Condor. You forgot to mention that he was also a former UN ambassador, so he is very well qualified to participate in this conversation. Good to be in your company, gentlemen.
Absolutely. And Mr. Condor, I'm sure you were surprised when you saw Mr. Wickham here.
Yeah, old friend of mine.
Yes, that's
very well.
We go a long way back. He has been responsible for all the political turmoil and so on that has taken place in St. Kitts over the last few years.
Peter, do you accept that?
I will go quietly into the night.
All right, gentlemen. Now, of course, we have assembled the both of you here to talk about this full movement, full regional integration that CARICOM is embarking on. Now, the spirit of the intention of full regional integration may be laudable, but it has come with reservations. And Peter, I want to begin with you because you are, in many respects, I call you a true Caribbean man. You are a quintessential Caribbean man in many respects. You have served in many jurisdictions across the region. You've heard some of those reservations. What are your thoughts on those reservations that have been advanced?
Yeah, no, I don't have a lot of time for the reservations when they come from a certain level.
Okay.
When they come from the ordinary person in the street, I appreciate that in some instances it's well founded. But unfortunately, a lot of those reservations come from people who should know better, quite frankly. As you said, I'm a Caribbean person through and through. I've worked in pretty much every one of the 14 Commonwealth Caribbean territories. I move easily among them. I feel comfortable and at home in almost every single Caribbean country. And I think that this is long overdue. You know, as a student, I long for the day that we could move freely across the region and work as we care to in every single country. But the reality is that it has been elusive for the vast majority of us. I've been fortunate in that I've had that facilitation. But I'm happy that CARICOM has now moved in a direction where, you know, everyone can benefit in the way that I benefit. The reality, Dr. Bob, and is there are some concerns and reservations that come from persons that I think require explanation because there are good reasons why we should do it. And I think that a lot of the concerns that we have are not unreasonable and require some level of intellectual engagement. You know, the issue of the concerns about overcrowding, the concerns about everyone rushing into one territory or the other. You know, the research has shown that this is largely of little concern. The reality is that it's not likely to happen. And over the years, what we have found is that the countries that are been more concerned about free movement, Barbados being one of them, Bermuda is another one that has similar concerns. But in the vast majority of other instances, there's really no good reason to think that overwhelming numbers of people will move simply because we don't have those in the Caribbean. But you know, the other side of it, which is an interesting point, is that we have challenges in Barbados now where we don't have too many immigrants. We have too few. And we also have a problem with population shortages. And I think that that's the case in many of the other islands where we could do with some population growth. So, you know, why not? And, you know, as the other guests will tell you shortly, my good friend, many of the islands, ironically, do passport sales, which is interesting because
Not
you're
passport sales. Call it another name.
Citizenship by investment. My apologies.
Citizenship by investment or investment migration, but of course.
Citizenship by investment, which is essentially growing your population by reaching out to wealthy persons and encouraging those persons to either reside or invest or both, which is not very, very different. And I found it interesting that while some ideas go in that direction, you know, we have people pushing back against the idea of full free movement. So I support it. I welcome it. I think it's long overdue. I'm happy that Barbados, which is one of the countries that has historically had the greatest number of reservations and has had some issues in the past, which are most unfortunate, like the Shanique Myrie issue, has been essentially setting the pace and saying, look, we welcome it. We're opening our doors and hopefully all the others will follow. So thanks for the opportunity to participate in this conversation. And I do really hope this is a new chapter in regional development.
Former Deputy Prime Minister Condor, the Leeward Islands.
Some is good. Yeah.
Okay, Sam. Yes, but some in the Leeward Islands would have a fundamental disagreement with what Mr. Wickham just put on the table. Tell us why that is.
Well, while in fact they're in a country, and I'm sure Peter will substantiate this. St. Kitts and Nevis they are true regionalists. I mean, starting way back in the West Indies Federation, our former leader Robert Bradshaw left St. Kitts to go to Trinidad to be in the federal house, and we have always promoted regional integration. But we have come a long way, you know, from 1958 and our developments. And I believe, well, that is the aspiration of our people. It needs to be managed, especially in small islands with limited resources. Free movement could have put a burden on our social and economic sectors, and so we have to make sure that it is well managed. You're aware that in our country, in fact, in the bigger countries where you have the University of the West Indies, where people are educated, free education, basically up to university level. In our countries, we don't have that opportunity, and so we have to make sure that we protect our people in terms of the social mobility, in terms of education and jobs and so on. So we are not placed at a disadvantage. So it must be properly managed and organized.
So, but Mr. Wickham's theory of the case here is that we do encourage migration from those CBI migrants.
No. CBI, that is not migration. That is basically investment. The focus of that is investment, not migration. People come not to live and to work and to stay and so on. It is basically
I think Peter is disagreeing with that. Peter, you're disagreeing there.
Which is interesting, because that's what fundamentally separates. For example, in Dominica, in order to get a passport, you actually have to go to Dominica and be interviewed, and they encourage you to live, as much as you can. The thing about the St. Kitts program was that it was one of the few programs that you could actually get the passport without visiting the country. And in many ways, it set a new trend. But I'm glad that Sam mentioned that point, because certainly the presumption in terms of citizenship by investment is that people would invest and live. While the reality is that in many instances, people would not even go to visit, which I think is pretty tragic. The question about managing immigration is something that I think requires a bit of discussion. The question of managing it means that you studied it and you have determined there's a likelihood of being overwhelmed. St. Kitts and Nevis, contrary to popular belief, and even though it's a small territory, is underpopulated. And the presumption is that if this thing happened tomorrow, and I heard someone in Nevis saying this, I believe it was even the premier, that you would have a deluge of persons from across the region coming to reside in Nevis or in St. Kitts, as the case may be. The reality is that there's no support for that in terms of looking at the actual numbers, because what the evidence has shown is that there are some regions, sections of the Caribbean, where there are large numbers of people that want to go, and they will go. And then there are large numbers of other places where people want to go to. I don't know that there's any evidence that certainly within the OECS that at any point in time there have been large numbers of people that have gone there other than from Haiti. And I think Haiti is a special case in this regard. So for me, yes, I agree that it needs to be managed, but I think that all of the investigation and research has suggested that we don't really have a potential problem. And indeed, if you look at the national insurance statistics, the population growth rates for many of these countries, there's a serious problem with underpopulation. Look at the population of Dominica, population of Nevis and St. Kitts. These are micro populations that could benefit from an influx of people coming. And it's interesting that while this is happening, you have large numbers of people from the Dominican Republic and Haiti settling in the same St. Kitts and Nevis. And this has
nothing to do with CARICOM. Haiti.
Right. But it's not within the whole single market framework. It is happening outside of the single market framework. And I'm saying that, these things are happening, but yet still, I'm being told about concerns.
But that is the point, Peter.
Yes, Peter, let us give Sam an opportunity to rebut there.
People are concerned about what's happening with this unmanaged, unregulated migration. And that is why we're saying, to add the CARICOM situation to that could be a little explosive for a small country like St. Kitts and Nevis. Like I said, we are regionalists at heart. We want to make sure that that we benefit, in terms of our development and so on, the social and economic development in terms of taking our country forward. But
what I hear you saying here, Mr. Condor, is that you would be more interested in encouraging skills-based migration.
Well,
as opposed
we
to
have
just
that already.
roughshod. Okay.
We have that already, but what we are saying is that we don't want a situation where our population, because like I said, the University of the West Indies, in Jamaica, in Barbados, in Trinidad, they have much more avenues in order to promote the development of their people. And so if we allow that, then we could have a situation where people come here in St. Kitts and Nevis and take the number of the high-level jobs, the well-qualified jobs, and leave us really at the bottom of the social and economic ladder. And we have to make sure that we don't do that to our people.
Oh, okay. Well, we are actually joined by another guest, Dr. Justin Pay, and this is somebody that that Peter knows well, because Peter and Dr. Pay appeared on the Bub Report following the Grenada elections of 2022. Yes, 2022 elections. At the time, both of them appeared in capacity as pollsters, but both Mr. Wickham and Dr. Pay actually sort of have the same research. They've conducted the same research, and they have the same philosophical approach around migration. So, Dr. Pay, welcome to the Bub Report again. It's a reunion of the pollsters.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dr. Bob. Good afternoon, Mr. Condor, and especially Mr. Wickham. Thank you for seeing you again. It is so happy to be in the midst of great people. And Mr. Condor, I understand your situation. I listened to your dispensation, and I want to say that just as someone who is in the field as a migration consultant, as a labor market consultant, as someone who, as a company, our company name is Dunn Pierre Barnett and Company Canada Limited. As an organization, I believe we collect data on the Black population. I believe that we have maybe one of the largest database of Black people worldwide. We collect, and also we have worked in this field. We have done the PAHO migration study, the 2020, where we interviewed upwards of 25,000 migrants, people in the health service. We went on the 28 countries. And so I've worked in 2022. We have done a project with the IOM in the region. So I think that I may be able to say a few things about the issue of migration with particular reference to your situation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, Dr.
I listened to your report. I think that the initial information you said with regard to some of the CARICOM leaders making decisions without proper.
It was not his report. It was a media personality.
Oh, good. Sorry. Right.
But yes, but
right.
he has
so
expressed,
some of it is
the general
some of
feeling
it,
of citizens in that country.
Right. So we don't maybe the premiers or the leaders should have at least maybe consult their population, do maybe some sort of focus group or town hall meeting. Yes, I agree with this. I fundamentally agree. I believe that we in the region, our leaders do not make decisions based on data. We make decisions based on feelings and how we, view things. But I think that these things have changed. Hopefully that we don't have a centralized database or data bank in the region to make decisions. And I think that's why I come from that perspective. What I want to say, sir, a lot of the information that you mentioned in your dispensation is not supported by data, the evidence. Okay, first of all, migrants. Only 3.5% or 3.6% of the world people migrate. So people do not generally migrate. So you will not see a whole lot of persons from Jamaica or from Trinidad and Barbados, as you comment, move over to St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay. On the contrary, migrant is more important to the region. And I think that it is important that we take advantage of this situation, because our region is too small to not accept migrants. We should be the forefront of accepting migrants. And for a lot of reasons, what Mr. Wickham had said is that if we don't have the migrants, our population over the last 60 years have our fertility rates have gone down tremendously. We have moved from fertility rate of about 5.6 to less than 2.0. Okay, we in the region are below the replacement fertility rate of 2.11, meaning that it is very difficult for our country to emerge from not accepting migrants. So accepting migrants is almost an emergency for us. Okay, and in St. Kitts, having migrants is more important. So for example, if you do not have, as our population age, we will need more and more migrants. So I was doing some work, looking at some data. We see that the challenge we have again is something called the dependency ratio. Most of our Caribbean islands have a very high dependency ratio, meaning we take the persons who are working in the labor force minus the persons who are dependent on those persons, that's persons over the age of 65 and under the age of 15. The dependency ratio, the standard dependency ratio for a normal country based on the economic, the IMF and the World Economic Forum is under 32%. Most of the Caribbean islands, the dependency ratio is way above 32%. We look at some data based on the data. St. Kitts has a dependency ratio of 42.9%. Grenada, on the other, has a dependency ratio of 51%. So even Grenada needs people. We need a lot of people inside our country. Also, St. Kitts need a lot of people in order for you to make provisions for the younger generation, and also make provision for the people who are getting older, who will be dependent on retirement and the pension. If not, what will happen? The national insurance scheme of these countries will have to hike up and increase rates, which will be at a disadvantage. So yes, sir, we need the migrants, and we welcome the leaders for making that bold decision to start encouraging migration, and that should have been done 10 years ago, not now.
That should have been done a long time ago. Let's give Mr. Condor a chance to respond, and then Pete, I want to get you to jump in.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying that migrants will have an impact on your education system. You have to prepare for them. How you're going to school them, on your health system, how you're going to keep your population healthy. You have to make sure that those things are well managed and well organized. And like I said, I'm coming from a historical perspective. Let me just give you one instance that has shaped my whole policy about development of small countries. And that happened many years ago, over maybe 50 years ago, when I made an application to go to university. I went to do an interview. I wanted to do economic development, so I had an interview at the University of Wales in Swansea. And I was asked about my country, why I wanted to do that. I said, I want to go home and help to develop my country. And the economic professor asked me, where's your country? I said, in St. Kitts. He didn't hear about that. Of course, he thought that was a part of Jamaica. So I had to give him a geography lesson. And then he said, so what's the size of your population? I said, it's under 100,000. He said, no, I don't want to hear under 100. You either know it or you don't know it. I said, it's about 50,000 people. He said, what's the size of your country? I said, it's about 100 square miles. He said, well, I think you should go back home. We don't have any development model for 50,000 people and 100 square miles. What we do is the Russian model and the Indian model and the Chinese model. So there's no hope for you. So that is the basis from which I come. That we want, you know, people, and we want size. And so the Caribbean integration made us into one people, one space, you know, because in terms of with Haiti, we'll be about 20 million. Without Haiti, we are just about 6 million. So we want space and we want size, we want people. But I'm saying that this could only happen when it is properly managed, because we have responsibility to our citizens to make sure that they get to the top of the social and economic ladder. That can only happen by
yes, Dr. Pierre, Dr. Pierre, stick a pin. Dr. Pierre, stick a pin. Let's get to Peter.
Yeah, God, there's so many things I wanted to say. Around the 2000s, between 2000 and 2010, I did a series of surveys across the OECS asking people if they supported regionalism, and in Barbados. And what I can tell you, generally speaking, the Caribbean people at the basic level support it. Most of the surveys were supportive, either the majority or the vast majority of persons were supportive. That's one basic point. I think the other thing too that we have to make, we had a green paper on immigration reform in Barbados, which was done by the Democratic Labour Party government that seemed anxious to fan the flames of xenophobia, right? And they made a lot of claims. One of them was in relation to what Sam just said about the fact that the education and health resources were not capable of managing this influx of migrants, and that was the reason why we had to check it, right? Now, Dr. Pierre made a point just now about the fact that there is this perception that migrants are a vast number of people roaming around the world looking for somewhere to live, and that a person will pick up themselves from Guyana, because that was the place that Barbados got most of their migrants, come to live in Barbados off the social system, right? And we heard that claim all the time. Oh, you're going to come in here, you're going to live off the health system and bring your children to go to school. When the reality is that the vast majority of people who migrated had good reason to migrate, because they came to work. They came to work, and in many instances, they found work quickly. If you check, none of them were living off the social services because they couldn't, right? When they got health issues, they would go to seek private care because they had no confidence that they could get it in the public system. And as far as the schools are concerned, the average number of persons in primary schools, the average size of a primary school in the 1960s when I went to school, it was 1,000 plus. Currently, the average number in our primary schools is about 500. So we have a situation where the private schools are actually underpopulated. And guess what? When migrants come, certainly to Barbados, they don't come with any big set of children to go into private primary school. Invariably, you're looking at adult men and women that are coming to set up, and maybe they start a family. But ultimately, it is a lot of single people that come and they set up and they organize themselves in that way. So I have a lot of time for Dr. Pierre's arguments that when you look at the science does not support a lot of these theories. And you know what I'm concerned about? I watched that debate in the United Kingdom where persons were talking about a huge wave of persons coming from Eastern Europe. And that this was the reason why the UK needed to.
That was part of the Brexit scare. That was part of, not the Brexit scare, but yeah.
Checked it out. There was no evidence to suggest that the Brexiters were afraid of something that was coming from Poland when they came into the UK in an organized way to help, and they work as doctors in the NHS. And you know what has happened now is you chase out all of these people in your bid to pursue Brexit. The National Health Service is falling down, not because people are coming in and taking advantage of it, but it's falling down because all the doctors and nurses that you were relying on were coming from Eastern Europe. So I appreciate that, you know, Sam has reasonable concerns, but I'm saying let's just not get carried away, because many of these things are rumored and opinions and belief that doesn't have any basis in science. Right. And, you know, the point right now is that we have a solid problem regarding our national insurance and the lack of population growth, and migrants fix that. That's how Canada survived. That's how the United States of America is surviving. That's how the United Kingdom will survive, by migration and by having young people coming in and working and contributing to the system and ensuring that, you know, the average person, I mean, that doesn't have large numbers of children, is able to still grow old and have people work and support them. But yeah, that's it.
But I think and then I will get to you, Dr. Bibb. But Sam's theory of the case here is about laying the groundwork for that particular inflow to occur. Not that he opposes the inflow, not that our Leeward Island brothers and sisters opposes the inflow, Peter, because I'm sure your research that you said you did bears that out. Sam spoke at length about that regional integration approach that they support in St. Kitts and Nevis. Sam, is that correct to say?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what the Federation was about in 1958. That is what we were hoping, that we were able to help each other and so on. And then, you remember Jamaica went off to become independent in 1962. Then Eric Williams won from 10 Leaves North.
One from 10 Leaves North, yes.
Left us in the Leeward Island. That is why we had this, the OECS, the establishment of the OECS, where we had this functional cooperation in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of aviation, in terms of regional security. I mean, that is what the OECS, building up the functional cooperation, that is where the central bank of the OECS comes from, because we realized we wanted people coming together. We didn't have the critical mass. If we had to improve our economic and social condition, we wanted people. That is where it comes from. So that has always been our mandate. That has always been our aspiration. But we're saying that it has to be managed, because some of those people who come, Peter, they don't pay Social Security, they abuse, employers abuse it because they could pay people, they could underpay people, they don't have to contribute to Social Security, and those are burdens on our system. So if it is properly managed, properly organized, we'll be able to make sure that all these things happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Pear?
Right. Okay. Mr. Sam, I understand what you say. I have a lot of respect for you. Okay. But a lot of the things that you're saying, okay, or with all due respect, is not supported by data. Okay. So just let me, as someone who's in the field, let me just give you a little bit of example. So for example, migration, okay, the migration is the most effective way to reduce poverty in a country. Okay. If you want to reduce poverty, you increase migration. What migration does, okay? Migrants' income, when you bring migrants, the volume, the income of your country, okay, it increases. Okay, the productivity of your country increases. Okay, this is common data from the World Bank, from the IOM, from the World Economic Forum. Okay, what happens? For example, what happens when migrants come in? Most migrants are on average more educated than the local population. In the Caribbean, 68% of the population secondary school education. Most of the jobs, if let's say that is needed for the country, if we bring the migrants in, most of these jobs will be occupied by the migrants, because migrants tend to have a higher level of education because of the experience. They come from larger countries, etc. So there's a benefit. What that does is that it increases the competitiveness of the country. As a result, many of the locals will then they will have to increase the education level to compete for jobs. So that brings up the education level. As why migrants are important, because what migrants does is that they increase the income of the country, increase their GDP. Most migrants between the ages of let's say 18 to 64, most of them they come for work, they come for skills, and if they are, let's say, they are business people, if they want to have a business, what will happen is that they most of the time they may not be able to get a loan from the bank. What happens is that they will bring their own income, they will bring their own financing. That will encourage persons, the locals, to be employed. I say these things because I have the experience. We worked on the migration policy for the Turks and Caicos Islands. We see the Turks and Caicos Islands as totally distinct. They have a large migrant population. There's another very, very good case example.
They also now have a Grenadian commissioner of police.
Exactly. So I worked with the Turks and Caicos. We conducted the migration policy. We conducted the Turks and Caicos national skills audit. So I have first-hand information of the effect of migration. There is also a very good case study of the importance of migrants in Panama. Panama was a few countries that allowed the Venezuelan migrants to come in. When other persons was chasing them away, Panama allowed them to come in. They're educated people. They tend to be more productive. So, and also other issues, migrants commit less crime than locals. Migrants are more productive than the locals. Migrants that come here for a mission, they come to work. Most of them do not depend on the social system. And a lot of the things, no offense, okay, sir, but a lot of it is not supported by data. And I'm a statistician, I'm blind, we use data to make decisions. And what I'm saying, sir, yes, kids need migrants.
And Dr. Pear, yes, the data is important, but also the lived experiences. And I saw Brother Sam smiling here. Is there anything that Dr. Pear indicated there that you want to rebut, sir?
Yeah, I've not only read these things in books, but I've lived it. Practical, not theoretical matter. And I know the problems he's talking about. All those things happen when it's managed. Because what you have unmanaged, you have slums, you have you create a cult, you change a culture. I see that happening in St. Kitts, where people come in or he's saying that the crimes are committed by locals. Well, that's something that has to be discussed, because there's a view that the whole culture of crime and so on is something that was imported in terms of having created slums, a lifestyle that is foreign to Kittitians when you don't have managed, organized migration. All of that is good, but it can only be done unmanaged. Left unmanaged and unregulated, you're going to have problems. That's my only point.
And let us quickly switch gears, gentlemen, because I want to bring up the issue of Haiti. Now, Dr. Pear and Mr. Wickham, you gentlemen were on the same page in respect of Grenada's treatment of the Haitian neighbors, our Haitian brothers and sisters who attempted entry into Grenada but was turned away, not allowed entry. Both Dr. Pear and Mr. Wickham, you guys were on the same page in saying that was an incorrect move on the part of the administration and the immigration officials at the time. But in the context of freedom of movement, full freedom of movement, as CARICOM is articulating now, for Haitian nationals for the most part, they are required visas to enter fellow CARICOM territories. Now, you gentlemen are the experts here. Mr. Condor, you are the expert here. You worked in government space. What is going to happen now? Would that visa restriction remain? Because that, to me, flies in the face of wanting full regional integration while still allowing that particular restriction for a historic member state, the very first Black Republic. Your thoughts, gentlemen? Peter, you want to jump in on that one?
Well, I'm going to jump in and then I'm going to jump out. But
yes, because I know you have to leave. Yes, thank you for the time.
No, I was supportive of Justin's argument at the time in terms of Haiti, and I think it's unfortunate. Haiti was admitted to CARICOM. My feeling was that when Haiti was admitted, the CARICOM heads needed to know what they're getting themselves into. We blow hot and cold where Haiti is concerned, because we say that we love Haiti and that they're our brothers, and that because of the history and whatnot, they provided this philosophical guidance for us. And we are always happy to embrace. The reality, however, is you're dealing with a population of millions, And the reality is that in the case of Barbados, when the visa restriction was lifted, Barbados was inundated by Haitians in a very short space of time, and not Haitians that were coming to Barbados with, like how the vast majority of Guyanese have come with, real prospects of work. Haitians that were coming with very little capacity to support themselves because of the economic situation. Government took a position which I thought was unfortunate, where they imposed a visa restriction because, as I said, you can't blow hot and cold. So my thing is, if Haitians do make their way to your shores, I think that you have an obligation. At the same time, however, there's a reality that steps in, and I think it's unfortunate that CARICOM did not consider these prospects before Haiti was admitted as a full member, because you can't have full members with rights and full members without rights. If you're going to say full membership means the right to move freely, then
what about Barbados, Bahamas, Peter?
And the Bahamas as well. Yeah.
What
Well,
about
the Bahamas,
they're part of CARICOM, but not part of the single market and economy.
Because the Bahamas has taken a position that they're not prepared to embrace single market rules because they understand what it means. Right. Now, my sense is that we should have taken the same position where Haiti was concerned, instead of saying, let's extend it to Haiti, in the full knowledge that if Haitians in large numbers decided they wanted to move, it's gonna be a problem. And you know what was interesting is that it is probably less of a problem for Barbados because it's harder to get here, right? There are countries in the island chain that are closer to Haiti, where the likelihood of people coming there is far higher. And, it presents a reality.
Like St. Kitts, like Anguilla. So therefore, Peter, I think you are perhaps agreeing with what Mr. Connor was articulating earlier.
Not really. I'm saying you need to not muddy the waters. If your science supports the likelihood that you are likely to be overwhelmed, then so I'm saying that as far as the Haiti issue is concerned, we needed to deal with that problem before, because we had a right to know that this was going to happen. And I think the way to avoid it is you rely on the science and the research. And the research will always have told you that you're going to end up in a problem like that where Haiti is concerned because of the numbers, the comparative economic development, and those types of issues, and especially proximity. That means that you're gonna end up in a problem. And I'm saying you could have studied that and known it. But if you make a decision that Haitians are our brothers, we're speaking now about the fact that they're our brothers and we're going to do for them what the French wouldn't do and whatnot. And then we're blowing hot and cold. So my thing is either they're our brothers or they're not. And if the science determines that they're not, so be it. If the science determines that they are, and if our love determines that they are, we got to deal with the consequences of having them as our brothers. But gentlemen, thanks so much for engaging in the conversation.
Just before you go, Peter, I think you and Dr. Pierre you all are saying the same thing, and I want to agree with it. We have to revisit this thing. The original idea was supposed to come at one. Because of what happened in 1962 with people going off on their own, now the whole organization have changed. I mean, we were even talking about in 1962 and so on, 1973 with CARICOM, the harmonization of foreign policy and that kind of thing. That is out the door now. You're not going to have anything like that about harmonization of foreign policy. We are going to choose our friends, whether it is mainland China or Taiwan or whoever it is. When we started in the OECS, when we started when we started becoming independent 40 years ago, Grenada was the first one, right? We had most of the OECS countries were aligned with Taiwan. Now there are only 4 CARICOM countries aligned with Taiwan. So you see, we have gone our separate ways. Our development strategy and policy, they're different. What we need is what you and Dr. Pierre is saying, that we want re-education. We have to go back to the drawing board. We have to re-examine it, revisit it. It is not like we are.
Sorry, I just want to say very quickly that
yes, Peter, go ahead.
To say that we need to revisit, we've already revisited. Bear in mind that all of this free movement comes out of the Grand Anse Declaration, which comes out of the work of the Independent West Indian Commission. That was only 1990 to 95. We attempted thereafter, after Ramphal did his work, after we had all of the studies coming out of that, and after we had the Grand Anse Declaration, right, which Kellon would know very much about, then we started to put together this infrastructure called the single market. So we're only really talking about something that was done, let's say, mid-1990s to 2000. I don't think it is fair to say that we haven't revisited, because when we started out with the Federation, and then we moved.
When I say revisited, Peter, I'm talking about going to the grassroots level, the education. Even I mean,
and what was the Independent West Indian Commission? They went to every country, spoke to all of the people. Ramphal came up with a document that said, we want this thing, and the way to go is forward. Out of that came the Granada's Declaration that said we're going forward. So my thing is, if we're going forward, let's go. If you feel that we need another consultation, I don't think Ramphal could do it anymore, but let's find somebody else to go.
Let me just tell you, Peter.
Well, perhaps, Mr. Condon.
When Mayor Motley, when Prime Minister Motley made the announcement that by the end of March, that we will have free movement, total free movement, half of the population say they were hearing it for the first time.
Sam, half of the population did not understand that that decision was made.
But that is the point I'm making. You have to make them understand. Yeah. You could only make them understand by engaging them, and we have not been doing a good job of that.
How many times are you going to repeat it? Oinata used to say it repeatedly in the late 2000s. Look, this is the direction that we're going. You know, yes. My question is, Kenny Anthony as Prime Minister, same thing. So it's not to say that this is news, right? I do feel that what Prime Minister Motley said, all she was saying is the circle we started with Granans, we are now completing it. And we're now finishing that work that we started with
that is the problem. She was assuming that people understood that. In fact, Kenny Anthony was here about a month, well, not a month ago, about 3 weeks ago. About a month ago. He was here and he was on a radio program that I was on. Those are the same questions that Kenny Anthony got, and he was saying the same thing that we are saying here today.
He forgot. He probably forgot.
Well, so and Peter, there is also another school of thought that Mia Motley, Prime Minister Mia Motley of Barbados, spoke out of turn. No. Because fundamentally, you don't agree with that. Because fundamentally, member states still have a sovereign determination to make in respect of whether or not they would accede to the full terms and conditions of free movement as well.
It is a sad responsibility for the single market and economy, yes, all the way going back to the 90s. Mia Motley's instructions came not from her head, but came from the fact that we had an agreement among heads in 1995 based on the Granada's Declaration.
The Granada's Declaration, which we have to, yes.
Right? Oinata tried to do it, and we had protocols. All of them are documented. Protocols that tried to achieve what was being achieved. What Prime Minister Motley said, those protocols are in place. The time now is for us to finish the job, and Barbados will take the lead by finishing and in terms of doing. We're taking leadership in Barbados by doing all of these things. And our argument was that at the time, the countries that were hesitant, Barbados, I think Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago more recently, Barbados is essentially saying, look, we're going to do what we have to do, and hopefully the others will follow. She wasn't speaking out of turn at all. She was taking instructions from the Granada's Declaration, the protocols that followed. All of that information is there, gentlemen. You could go back and read it. And if Dr. doesn't remember, maybe he has to remember the work that he did with Ralph Gonzalez, with Oinata in the 1990s. And they were passionate regionalists, and I support them. Prime Minister Martin essentially saying, let that vision become reality.
And we also have to understand that the whole issue of migration, the whole issue of encouraging the Haitians, okay, is also a positive. Okay, we have to really look in terms of when we accept them, we have to understand based on the what type of contributions they can make, assess them. So, for example, what has been happening from my experience, so Suriname have around 40,000 Haitians, Guyana also have, a lot of them are in the agricultural sector, they make a valuable contribution. For example, let's say, so a lot of the countries, for example, if I was an advisor in the Grenadian government, I would have maybe bring in about maybe 2,000 Haitians or 1,500 Haitians. You put them in the agricultural department because the agricultural department needs a lot of assistance, and the normal Grenadian person would not go into the agricultural sector. So they bring the Haitians in. They will contribute. They will make valuable contribution, and what will happen is that in 5 or 10 years, they will have children. 20 years, the children will then be nurses and teachers. In 30 years, they will be judges and lawyers. And this is how migration goes. And same thing with the Jews in the 1819s to 1910. No one wanted to employ a Jew in the United States. Look what happened now. They dominate the finance, they dominate their medical field. And that's what migration does. Okay, at what people come in for different reasons. You are a father, you come in to help your children. As we spent 2 years in the Turks and Caicos Islands. We interviewed thousands of Haitians. We interviewed those that came in from the boat. So we interviewed them. And same thing, they are not coming in for themselves. They will get the low-paying job. They will get the elementary occupations. However, they will have children.
Yeah.
And,
Dr. Yes, just take a pin because I want to give Peter an opportunity for some closing comments. Because Mr. Wickham, I know that you do have to go. Thank you for indulging us.
No, it's my pleasure. Gentlemen, I enjoyed the conversation, and I'm going to definitely watch with great interest. I think that we're all on the same page. Maybe we taking slightly different directions, but on the same page generally. And I think that the region's future is bright, and I do hope that the experience of regionalism is something that can continue to grow to the next level. So thanks a lot.
Mr. Wickham, thank you so much. All right, Dr. Pear, please proceed. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So if I was an advisor, I would advise that most of the countries, especially the larger countries, take in more Haitian migrants, especially for the government of Jamaica. I think that Jamaica should be the leader in this, and Jamaica has not done a good job. The country just continue to deport Haitians just over and over and over. I think that has to stop. I think other countries like Trinidad and Grenada and we should do better because we know better. And most of the Haitians are not criminals. However, they are persons fleeing economic situation. Maybe the government can have a threshold that we want to import, 1,000 Haitians, and in a specific.
But I believe this is the point Brother Sam has been making. Manage migration. That's the point. That's the point.
Dr. Bob, please, thank you so much. Just let me go back because you said that you thought that the Prime Minister of Barbados spoke out of turn. Well,
at least that was the articulation of officials in Antigua and Barbuda as well.
Because anybody who didn't know, that was a decision that should have been discussed with the people around the region, because she had the mandate from the heads. But it didn't pass the head. That is why I'm saying we need an education. We need to manage it. We need to regulate it.
Because
even the point that Dr. P is making, we have a situation where we're talking about agriculture in CARICOM, 25 by 25. We have a agriculture sector here that is suffering, and would need the same thing that Dr. P is saying. If we could get some migrant workers, because our people are not going into agriculture the way they should approach it if we are going to get to 25 by 25. But that could only happen if you organize it, if you manage it.
Yes. So the management.
Problem that
we in Grenada have the CBI. So the CBI can have to restructure itself.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, with the CBI is that it only concentrates on persons on one economic sector. Proper migration should be it should have different systems, and what we look at only migration from one sector. it does not really benefit the country properly. What has to happen? For example, Panama has a very good model. The Turks and Caicos has a very good model. Okay, and we in Grenada it should adopt a similar model. We should get a consultant to help the country. The issues with the Grenada and the whole labor force, they work on the work permits. Have a better system, which we do not have now. What will happen if right now the country needs about 40 to 60,000 new migrants over the next 10 years, and we can manage it. If we have the space in Grenada, we need them. And if the government decide to make a decision to take in the migrants, what will happen? They will bring more economy and more funds to the country. The economy will be better. What will happen is that the contribution these migrants will make to the economy, the contribution they will make to the national insurance scheme will benefit the country, because the country, we have an aging population. We also have a country with one of the highest dependency ratio in the region, 51% highest dependency ratio, and you cannot run a country effectively with such a high dependency ratio. The standard dependency ratio should be under 30%. Ours is over 51%. So it means that there's not enough of us. If I am the best roti, I was telling a friend today, if I am the best roti maker in Grenada, I have a problem because there are not enough people. So we need the migrants more than the migrants need us. So we're encouraging, Grenada as the land of the revolution.
And Mr. Kondo, in respect of, Dr. Pear speaks of that demographic time bomb that exists in Grenada in relation to its social security scheme. Is that the same reality in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, in fact, I like to think that our social security scheme is one of the best organized and managed social security. It's based on the principles of universality, solidarity, and equity. So that is the basis that everybody is involved. You get according to your needs, and so and you have solidarity that everybody's supporting each other. I mean, our programs in Social Security, has been, but even that needs to be reorganized. And now at this stage, we are talking about Dr. Pierce talking about the dependency ratio. How much it takes to keep the other half of the population going. And so we even have to look at now the retirement age. We are 62, I think, is one of the youngest retirement age in the region. People gone up to 68 and 70 and that kind of thing. I mean, they almost had a revolution in France trying to increase the
retirement. That's right, the age. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm saying my basic point is that these things are not going to happen without the proper education. We can't think that you could go at a heads of government conference, because when Prime Minister Motley was announcing it, that was an agreement at the heads of government. People were hearing it for the first time. And then when the education comes in, and if you get general education, you'll be able to manage it, because people will be understanding more of what it is about. See that it is in their interest. You could only sell somebody something when you convince them that it is in their interest to have this thing going.
Yes, and
Dr.
Yeah, and this is why I believe that more engagement, more town hall meetings, more
Absolutely.
all of these, we need to just inform our citizens, and no offense to the politicians, but many of the politicians make decisions without informing the people. And even though the decisions were made, in agreement 10, 20 years ago, but we need to constantly educate the people, constantly engage the people. Politicians and ministers need to engage the people, because, I'm just let's talk from a Grenada standpoint. When we conducted the 2022 survey, what persons wanted to engage with the leaders. They wanted to make sure that the leaders know them and touch them and feel them, because we come from a history of that.
Right.
And so we just need to inform. We're people of an oral culture. We like to hear things on the radio. We need to talk shows. So that's what has to happen. And if we don't, if we do that, it will be better for us. But if we don't do that, it will be
and it doesn't have to be done by the leaders. You know, you have functionaries, you have permanent secretaries, you have advisors, you have directors, you have all kind of people. You have the technical people. But like I said, the decision of the single market was supposed to come in the end of March.
Yes.
So that was the important thing that the Prime Minister
and Dr. Bob,
for the first time.
Has based on my knowledge, has our country made any public statement on that? As our leaders made any public statement?
I believe the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, did speak about it at the CARICOM meeting, and I believe upon his return to Grenada, there was a press conference, and I believe the Minister of Foreign Affairs did speak about it to the extent that it was prioritized in respect of public communication. I don't know, but I do know that based on press engagements that they had at the CARICOM level, that they did speak about it for sure.
Right.
Yes.
So Mr. Kondo,
and just as a programming note, folks, we did invite Grenada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Joseph Andel, to be on this week's program. He did give us a confirmation, but at the moment he's traveling to Venezuela for a meeting, we believe, so he was unable to appear, and that was just because of scheduling conflicts. But he did give us a commitment that in the future he will be appearing on the Bub Reports to speak on this very important issue.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yes, so Mr. Kondo, at least we in Grenada, we're a little better than St. Kitts and Nevis. At least we engage with the public, so that's good for us. One feather in our cap. And as I said, so we are hoping that something could be done quickly with the Haitian situation. We need also to, as you said, Mr. Kondo, to manage the migration, to decide who we want to come in our country. We, Grenada, we need between 40 and 60,000 people more in the country. To save the country, we need to double our GDP to 10 billion. Okay, so there's a lot more we need in Grenada, and if we continue on that line, I think things will be better for us. However, especially in the agricultural sector,
absolutely,
we need a lot of Haitians. Well, we need a lot of migrants to come in. Okay. Because we need a lot of migrants to come in and help us, as what some of the other neighboring countries are doing secretly. They're bringing them in, let them work on the plantation, and they're
sort of an off the books approach, as Mr. Kondo said. Yes.
right. Okay. Because we are now conducting a national skills audit in Ghana. We've conducted one in St. Lucia, and most of these countries we've done, as you may know, we provided 2 years of consultancy to the government of Suriname. And when we count the population, because it's, as I said, we in the Caribbean, we make decisions. Our leaders, we do not make decisions based on data, based on evidence. And this is where we want to change. When we make decisions, we take all the data, all the available data, all the unstructured data that we have, their births and death, the primary school enrollment, the secondary school enrollment, the national insurance data, the data from the Ministry of Finance, the data from the prison, data from the passport, the data from the NIS, all that data, educational data. Take that data and put some sort of weaponize it with artificial intelligence and make predictions, so we can know how many teachers we need in 5 years, how many nurses and doctors and lawyers and engineers and plumbers and painters. This is what is needed. Since 2020 in the COVID, we have moved from we went to a new economy, a new digital age economy, and the economy of AI. The days of Excel, it's gone. Okay, people no longer use Excel to make decisions. So if you're making decisions based on Excel, it means that you are far behind. And that's why you need big data. Okay, and in Grenada, specifically speaking for Grenada and some of the other kind of countries we work on, there's absence of big data. So the decisions that the leaders make are not really based on a wide body of knowledge. I mean, we need the census, the labor force survey, all of this information we need to use to make decisions for our country. And this is where we provide as a company. Just lastly, and also the ability to take the SDG goals and monitor them. Okay, but not necessarily, but using data, artificial intelligence to monitor these SDG goals. And this is some of the services we provide.
Yes.
You see,
and of course, yes.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that even in the sub-region, because we have started, I mean, our Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is a model in terms of how small countries could have functional cooperation. Our OECS Supreme Court, our OECS telecommunication system, our aviation transport system, our health facilities, pharmaceutical procurement and all of that, our regional security system. That is what I'm saying about, talking about managing it, regulating it, organizing it. As small as 50,000 people, you can't do anything with that. But if you have access to 6 million people, you know, in the rest of the region, in Barbados, in Jamaica, in Guyana, and so on. But in fact, like I said, we need a re-education. Don't forget that Myri case in Barbados. You remember that case?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, all those things that affected us. So we need to go back and reshape the thinking and the education to convince people that this is good for us. This is in our best interest. That is what the Federation was about in 1958. We have strayed away from that, but we have to come back to that as our people. Even if we look at, you know,
and we also we also have to see things from a different perspective, because remember that we were also immigrants to this region, the Caribbean and Latin American region. Black people never stayed there. They would belong to the Indians, and then we came in there and displaced them. And now, you know, so we have to see this from
not through our own free will, okay?
No, of course, but reality is reality.
There's this thing called slavery.
Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you. This was a very important conversation.
Colonialism and all of that. We have
colonialism. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Former Deputy Prime Minister Condor, any closing comments from you, sir? First of all, welcome to the Bub Report. It's a pleasure. We do hope to rely on your expertise on these matters in the future, but we're happy to have you on the program, sir. Over for some closing comments.
I want to thank you for inviting me. I mean, this is what, you know, I believe that the region should be doing. The education, the information, the engaging. This is how we are going to develop as a people, by sharing our views and our ideas. Let all the ideas contend. Let us as a people see what is the best for us. I mean, nobody knows what is better for us than we ourselves. We could teach people in terms of, you know, democracy and accountability. We could teach the rest of the world that, but we have to begin to teach ourselves. We have to begin to get our people to understand that we are a proud region, a proud people. And if we are to continue to improve, then we have to come together as one. We cannot do it as individuals, St. Kitts and Nevis and Grenada and St. Vincent and St. Lucia. Together, we have to pool our resources and see that one. But it has to be managed and organized, and the engagement. And Dr. Bob, I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here to discuss this. Dr. Pierre, it's a pleasure to hear you. I've known Peter for a while, and so we have always engaged. And so even when you disagree, you must do it respectfully and see, because all of us
dispassionately, absolutely.
All of us looking for the same thing, the better thing for the region. And here We have our university, our West Indies, and our people. I mean, we are a poor people. We could stand tall. We punch about our weight. These 15 Caribbean countries, well, not all of us are members of Commonwealth, but when we go to the Commonwealth meetings, I have been to Commonwealth meetings. I think I was at the Commonwealth meeting when South Africa was reunited in the Commonwealth with Mandela, and I heard of the respect and admiration he spoke about the Caribbean people. You know, I mean the role we play in the OAS. You know, we are what, 15 countries in the OAS. The OAS are 33 countries. We are almost 50%. And so we have to let our presence felt and our views known. We know what it is. We have come through it all. Slavery, colonialism, to independence. And we have to show people that what is Caribbean period about. We must continue to do that. And so we have to carry our people with us. And so we have to engage them and educate them. It's not going to happen by chance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much. Dr. Peck, over to you for some closing comments.
Good. Once again, Dr. Bob, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to make my comments on your program. Mr. Kondo, thank you very much for associating with you. This is the first time I'm meeting you, and all the guests, all the viewers. Okay, I want to say that this subject is something that I'm very passionate about. We have been involved in this for a very long time. Migration, we've done some work with many of the organizations, many of the countries. We believe that this situation would teach us that unity is better than division. This situation, this discussion should also teach us that the leaders should know that the citizens are educated and they need answers, and the leaders must inform their citizens. We also want to say that at the end of it, the migration is needed in the country, especially in countries with high dependency ratio like Grenada. We need that in Grenada case and most of the other countries with over 50% dependency ratio. We need the migrants more than the migrants need us. So we need to inform a strategy. When the migrants come in, most likely they will be more educated than us. So therefore, they will juggle us and make us be more educated, go back to school to compete for the jobs. And I want to say that my wish, my desire is for countries as ours to use data in decision making. There's enough data in the region. However, all the data are not connected. And if we do that, I think our country will do well. And we believe that in our future, I believe that things will get better. And however, we would like the country and the leadership to really have better management. We're reaching out to all the leaders to have better management, and data and decision making should be inculcated in the management process. And we are encouraging countries to set up some type of big data system so that we can use that data in making decisions. And if we do that, I think we will do very well. And
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Mr. Sam Condor, the former Deputy Prime Minister and former Foreign Minister of St. Kitts Nevis, Dr. Justin Pear, Migration and Labor Market Consultant. And before them, we had Mr. Peter Wickham, who joined us on this week's edition of the Bub Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bub. Please remember to share this program so that others can have an opportunity to learn what we were able to discuss this week. On behalf of the producers of the program, we're saying happy Sunday, and we wish everyone a pleasant week. Take care now. Bye-bye.